everyone, Beyond TCG here, bringing you another review episode. This one kind of the reverse of what you saw before, where we had 10 bad Pokemon card designs. This time we have 10 great Pokemon card designs. I wanted to show you that there is plenty of good. I know it may have sounded negative from the last two videos, but those cards were 10 very specific cards. This is, let me tell you, I had a hard time finding 10 examples on to pick from. There were many other cards, and I'm sure I'll have more episodes in the future if people really enjoy this. But I wanted to show what I think are good Pokemon card designs, since I myself am designing cards as part of this channel. So you can kind of see what the gold standard is, in my opinion. This order is a little bit more loose. Yes, it's a 10, and I kind of try to go from pretty cool designs to even greater designs, but it's not super stringent or anything. All these designs are great, so definitely go ahead and try them out. And as a final note, I want to mention I am a Mutant Cube player. If you don't know what that is, I know the J-Witch channel covers that one, but that definitely makes a lot of these cards way more fun for me than they would be otherwise. So definitely check that format out. It's going to make opening your Pokemon packs even better for you because there will be more cards that you can play. All right, let's hop into just some details of what makes a well-designed Pokemon card before we get into the 10. So this is kind of the 3 questions I typically ask when I'm looking at a card. Number 1, does it feel balanced? Obviously, there are Pokemon cards that are really cool, but they're also really broken at the same time. When I say broken, I mean they make unfun deck experiences. They just feel way too one-sided. Or even worse, they shut down your opponent's deck in such an oppressive way that they can't play the game. That is not very fun. If you want to do that, you can just play Solitaire. Coming up next, that is, does it feel unique? So as it turns out, looking through the history of Pokemon, you'll kind of notice that they use the same effects and abilities over and over again, especially since they need to fill out set numbers, which is somewhat understandable. But every now and then you get some sort of Pokemon card gem that is totally unique, and that's what we're looking for here. When I see card effects that are just like, wow, they have never done that before, and to this day they haven't done it again. Those are my favorite kind of designs, and it's always fun to look out for those. And then the absolute best thing it can be is, does it create unique strategies? And when I say that, I mean this card alone. You take a look at it, you're looking at the preview, and you're like, whoa, I can come up with a unique deck for that. And I'll tell you, a lot of these cards in the list, either I've already tried to make some goofy decks for them, or I'm just waiting to get the right support to make a strategy. I haven't given up on a lot of them. So without further ado, let's check out some of these cards and we'll get an idea of what I'm talking about.
Number 10.
All right, coming in number 10 is actually a recent one. It's the Galarian birds from Evolving Skies. I like all 3 of these because they're not just Pokemon that you kind of have in the bench. They're great because at all points of the game, especially when you're trying to make a comeback, which seems to be how they were designed, they can come down at any time and get you back into that game, but not in some sort of unfair way where you just get to cheat and play them for free. It's the fact that they come down, but you have to have energy in the hand. Also, all 3 of them have these really unique attacks that are still relevant, but don't feel really broken at any point, honestly. Like, Galarian Moltres is only good later in the game. Galarian Articuno is good for trying to hit the, snap off a bench Pokemon or something like that. Galarian Zapdos has Paralysis, but you can play around that. Like, these cards feel totally fair, but they're super unique, and they add really interesting counterplay to the game. So, not something you could build your deck around, but overall, really healthy cards. Glad that they're made, and glad that they're in the TCG now.
Number 9.
All right, coming in at number 9 is Greninja from Unbroken Bonds. So this is one of those cards that it actually turns out I was going through all these old Pokemon cards, and there is another Pokemon that has an attack like this way early on. I think like Ruby, Sapphire, Diamond, Pearl. But this Greninja has the Bring Down attack for Colorless. The Pokemon that has the least HP remaining, except for this Pokemon, is knocked out. This is such a cool attack in my opinion. First off, any attack that says knock out the opposing Pokemon, as long as it's not super broken, is probably going to be really interesting because you really have to think about the unique ways to balance an effect like that. And this one in particular not only makes you kind of play these games, but it makes your opponent play these mind games, or now you're both playing a game but don't have the weakest person in play. And I just love the kind of gameplay that creates. Every time I've played this card, it's led to just hilarious interactions, especially when we play multiplayer with our friends. And even more so, it adds more value to the second attack, because normally Dark 70 would be like, whatever, especially on a stage 2. But just the fact that it's like, oh, this could line up the opposing Pokemon, so now I can use Bring Down next turn. It just automatically makes every part of the card more interesting. I think it makes your deck building unique, where you're trying to keep HPs high or not have the weakest Pokemon, and just, again, super cool design, and glad to see it.
Number 8.
All right, coming in at number 8 is Eelektross from Unified Minds. So this one, if there's one thing I want to note about stage 2s, what is always a cool thing to them is if you can ever find a way to kind of cheat them in the play, that is always the fun design. That's like the advantage that they get. And Eelektross here does that perfectly. It's got this ability, Electric Swamp, that basically has, if it's in your hand and you have 4 lightning energy in the play, you can just cheat it onto your bench and then attach all the lightning energy onto the Eelektross. I just like this card similar to the birds where it's a little bit more aggressive than defensive like the birds are, but it's still cool because it lets you think about how am I going to make my deck that I can have electric energy all over the place. And then the fact that it just kind of cheats itself in the play, that means you don't always need to have like a Tynamo and an Electric. Just super cool, adds some really unique gameplay, and yeah, I like this card a whole ton because of that.
Number 7.
Coming in at number 7 is Tyrantrum from Forbidden Light. This is a card that's actually pretty tragic because it's stuck under the Fossil Curse, where fossil cards are just never really good because getting fossil into play is too much work. But this is a card that enables a really cool strategy where it has an ability that if you have less Pokemon in play than your opponent, its attacks deal 60 more damage and it takes 30 less damage from attack, which is great because it already has a really strong attack that does 100 damage and auto discards an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. So I think this is a great example of building a reward for a strategy, not something kind of boring like, oh, you can cheat an energy or something like that, but something that just like deals more damage, take less damage. I love the combination there. I wish this card saw more play in the meta. It's just not quite good enough, but I do play in a Mutant Cube, so definitely go ahead and try it out there.
Number 6.
Okay, coming in at number 6 is Malamar from Unbroken Bonds. So this is one of those cool designs where any way that you can use an attack that's not just an ordinary attack creates something interesting. And this Malamar has Hypnotic Rain for Darkness. Your opponent reveals their hand. You may discard a Pokemon you find there and use one of that Pokemon's non-GX attacks as this attack. This is another card that I always love when evolutions are more popular in the format because obviously this gets better since evolutions tend to get stuck in the hand more. But it's just so interesting whenever Pokemon introduces these designs that actually attack from different dimensions, you know, like going in the hand in this case. So I love the alternate attack cost. I've had some hilarious games already with this card. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's good enough right now because people just don't get Pokemon stuck in their hand. But hey, maybe in the future if there's one that deals damage based off of HP, that'd be pretty cool. So again, another great Mutant Cube card. Wish this card saw play, but awesome design.
Number 5.
All right, coming in at number 5, this one is an Alolan Marowak from Unified Minds. I want to shout this one out because obviously when they've been doing these regional forms, they've been trying to do these free attacks. And I think Alolan Marowak here is a great example of how to make a interesting and balanced free attack. It has Spirit Smash, costs nothing, so you just do this attack for free. Discard the top card of your opponent's deck. If the card you discarded is a Pokemon, this attack does damage equal to the Pokemon's HP to your opponent's active Pokemon. Again, this card's super cool. It's never going to be perfect, although, man, oh man, if they ever unbanned Ice Pickaxe, which I know they're never going to do, I would totally use it in conjunction with this card just to make some goofy deck where I try to mill and knock him out with some giant multi-prize or HP. But again, this card's just really, really cool. It's not the kind of card that I'd ever expect to be meta-defining, which is fine, but it serves such a unique role and makes such a fun strategy that I'm a fan that it exists, and I'm glad it's here.
Number 4.
Coming in at number 4, we got an older card here, Dusknoir Lv.X from Stormfront. This card has a whole bunch of text, as you can see, but to kind of TLDR the whole card, basically if it gets knocked out, it turns into a stadium, and that stadium puts a damage counter on your opponent's Pokemon in between turns. Obviously, I gotta shout this card out because there has literally never been anything like this. I mean, Diamond and Pearl had some really, really creative cards. I need to go through the list again to include them in the future, but this one, you know, it stands the testament of time. There's never been a Pokemon that turns into a stadium since, and that's still a really strong effect. I mean, if you could play a stadium that just pinged all of your opponent's Pokemon every turn, you probably would. I can understand this is basically a stage 4 and it has to get knocked out. That is so much work to get that activated, but I think this card's amazing. I really hope to see a design like this in the future, and maybe hint, hint, spoiler, spoiler, you'll see that in the future from me.
Number 3.
Coming in at number 3 is a card that I am still trying to break to this day. It is Whimsicott from Guardians Rising. I know if you've ever watched like a Dark Integral Gaming, I saw he attempted to make a deck out of this one, and oh man, I really loved watching that one. It has the Wages of Fluff ability. If the defending Pokemon is knocked out during your next turn, take 2 more prize cards. This is just such a cool card. I'm glad it has 0 retreat. This card would have been terrible if it had any retreat, but it's also another card that's trying to enable such a goofy strategy where, you know, there is a world where maybe you knock out a VMAX somehow, and then you also do this, and then you already take 5 prize cards, which is such a funny idea. Again, a card I don't think that's ever going to be broken or meta-defining, but it's doing such a cool thing so that even cards like this, when they don't end up in the meta, I'm just kind of happy they exist because it's Pokemon trying out new things.
Number 2.
All right, coming in number 2, I've seen other people try and make this card work. It's Gengar from Breakthrough. Specifically for Psychic Colorless Creepshow, if your opponent's active Pokemon has 3 or more damage counters on it, that Pokemon is knocked out. Like I mentioned earlier, whenever you do an effect that automatically knocks out your opponent's Pokemon, you know it's probably going to be something really cool because then it's like something that you try and build your whole deck around. And this one I really love because I know there's so many people that try and do these spread damage counter effect decks, and this card is the reward for playing that. I've tried to pull it off multiple times. I tried to use it with like what is it, Arctozolt recently that puts the damage counters when they attach energy, and then using this to try and pick off the KOs. It was bad, it was inconsistent, but I'm also sure that there's a better version of this deck that I can play. I love this card. I still intend to use it in the future as HPs get bigger, that attack gets better and better, so hopefully I'll be able to pull it off in the near future.
Number 1.
And finally, coming in at number 1 is Chandelure from Unified Minds. Did you know this card existed? I'm going to enlighten you on it because I have used it before. For single fire energy, it does 10 damage, but you discard the top 5 cards of your deck, then it does 60 damage for each Pokemon that you discard this way. Then, any fire Pokemon that were discarded this way, you can automatically cheat onto your bench. I can tell you now, I have built a deck and expanded around this where I would cheat the Incineroar that pumps my attacks up, and the Delphox that auto burns every turn, as well as the brand new Rapidash from Silver Tempest that discard fire energy to do more attacks. This is such a cool card. This is like the perfect example of peak design. You see this card and you're like, wow, I'm going to build a deck around this because it's doing something so unique. And there's no card that I've seen in the history. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I've never seen a card that acts like Chandelure here. Is it good? No, it is a stage 2, unfortunately, which means it is tragically bad in today's meta. But I can tell you, everywhere I've played it, it does such a cool, unique thing. I mean, I really rave about this card because I love seeing designs like this. I hope we see more cards like this, or somehow there's a better version of Chandelure in the future. I'll take that. But I think this is peak design right here. So, in conclusion, that's basically some 10 great designs here. Don't worry, just because you may like some Pokemon card and not see it on the list here does not mean that I don't know about that card. There are so many great designs. I was going through my own cube and like, I can't decide. But these ones really kind of stuck out to me as perfect examples. If you like this video and you're curious of other cards, I can definitely try and make another top 10. I'm sure there's other cards out there in my cube that I would go, oh, you know what, this one warrants its own video. But besides that, I hope you really enjoyed this one. Again, I'm in development on set 2 right now, very, very close. I'll be back from a vacation and then getting all ready for that one. So I hope you're enjoying these videos in the meantime. I've been Beyond TCG, and I'll see you in the next one.